everybody. Thank you so much for joining us with Edrie Pfeiffer today, bankruptcy attorney in Virginia Beach. John, tell us a little bit about Edrie.
That's right. We're joined today. Edrie, how you doing? Joined today by Edrie Pfeiffer.
I'm doing great. It is so wonderful to see you guys again. It's been a long time since we've actually been able to see each other.
Excellent.
Yes, a couple months.
Yeah.
So Edrie is the founding attorney, the managing attorney at Hampton Roads Legal Services, and she is an expert in bankruptcy law. She's been doing this for more than 20 years, so she's handled a lot of bankruptcy cases, right?
Yeah, I assume it's probably somewhere up around 10,000 by now that I've handled over the years. So,
Wow,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
that's amazing.
That is very
Yeah.
impressive.
And
Yeah.
Edrie, you also do divorce law as well at your law firm.
I
correct?
do. I do a very subset of divorce law. I specialize in working with people that want an uncontested, a very quick and easy divorce where everything's really been settled. There's no fights over anything. They just really need to get the legal process taken care of. Or they may need to have a separation agreement prepared that they've already discussed everything and are in agreement, but they just need the legal documents drawn up. I don't get involved in contested divorce work where you're fighting over things, whether it be child support or spousal support or who gets what. I try and stay away from those. I like the ones where the clients just really want to go through and get their divorce finalized.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. And
Well-
we're not going to be talking about divorce today. We're going to be talking about bankruptcy.
Right.
Yes.
And we are so grateful that you hopped on this Zoom call with us to talk to us and talk to our community about bankruptcy. Because,
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
yes,
it's my pleasure.
yeah, everyone's talking about bankruptcy nowadays, about how it's spiking up or in a couple of months going to totally ramp up with this economy, people unemployed. What is your firm experiencing right now? What are you guys gearing up for?
Well, right now things have slowed down a little bit. I think that with the shelter in place and the fact that there are so many people currently unemployed, that right now they're really not thinking about dealing with their debts, but just trying to survive from day to day. However, we anticipate that when things start to loosen up and people start to go back to work, but maybe can't get as many hours, or they've now fallen behind on rent payments or had other things that have come up, that there's going to be a real spike in bankruptcies and there's going to be a real demand for bankruptcy services. So we're expecting somewhere probably in the next 3 to 6 months that there's going to be a very large increase in the number of people who need to file for bankruptcy protection.
Okay. And for those who are listening who don't know, tell us a little bit about how exactly does bankruptcy work? Who can file? Who should file? How long does it take? When do they file? How do they file? All these things.
And I know this is a loaded question. We could probably spend the whole hour.
Yeah.
But if you were to just give an overview on
Of
what you think
the
people who are
thumbnail
watching
sketch.
need to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's basically two types of bankruptcy for consumers or individuals to file. There's what's called a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, often referred to as the Fresh Start bankruptcy.
Oh, I like
And
the way that
that's-
sounds. Fresh start bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people want. And we say we want to help people start fresh. But the Chapter 7 is the complete elimination of unsecured debts, things like credit card debts, medical bills, old utilities, repossessions, things like that can be completely wiped out in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And also, if they have secured debts like a car loan or furniture loan that they no longer want the item for it, they can also surrender that and walk away from the debt also in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The other type of consumer bankruptcy is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is a repayment plan. And we use that a lot for people who have debts that need to be paid back. And we anticipate seeing a lot of these because one of the most common reasons for filing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is people who've fallen behind on mortgage payments, normally because they've had some sort of temporary loss of income, and now they need an opportunity to get those payments brought current. And that's where we use Chapter 13 bankruptcies a lot for that situation. Now, there are certain debts that can't be wiped out in bankruptcy, like student loans, recent tax debt. Those things are not going to go away no matter what type of bankruptcy you file.
So I guess it's student loans, debt, and taxes. We could lump student loans into that pile that you can't have those forgiven, right?
Right. That's right. Although we've been trying to get Congress to do that for years, because as the student loan debt now surpasses credit card debt in the United
Wow.
States, we're seeing it have a real impact on the economy from people who just can't do anything else because they're student loans. But that's a topic for another day
Mhm.
for it.
Yeah. So when you're advising a potential client when they're coming to meet with you, you, I suppose, have to listen to all the facts of their case and what their goals are in order to determine whether they should be filing for Chapter 7, the Fresh Start, or the Chapter 13.
Correct. There's a lot of different factors that play into it. It's not quite as clean cut as, well, what do I want to get rid of? There are other factors that play into it. For instance, if they own a home that has a lot of equity in it, they may not be able to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Or if they've recently had to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, they may not be eligible to file another one at this point. If their income is above a certain level, they may not be able to file a Chapter 7. So there's a lot of things that have to be looked at to make a good determination as to what type of bankruptcy they qualify for. And that's something that people need to be very cautious about. I'm really hesitant when somebody tells me that, oh, I called another office and they said I could file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but I never met with them, or they gave me a quote without ever talking to me about my situation. I always really worry about that, because you've really got to take a pretty deep dive into what's going on in their lives to know what's going to be the best path forward for them and what they hope to accomplish from the bankruptcy.
Now, this is maybe a hard, well, I know it'll be a hard question to answer, but maybe you can just give some general guidance. Eh, Most people at some point in their lives have stress about financial situations. What is a sort of threshold or tipping point for somebody to just feel stressed about their finances to actually crossing over into where you think that they might want to consider a bankruptcy?
Well, what I tell my clients is that they really need to think about a 5-year picture. If they have the ability to pay off their debts within a 5-year period, setting aside a mortgage on a house, but if they could pay off the rest of their debt in a 5-year period without compromising the money that they need to live on and support their family, well, then they should pay those creditors back. But if it's going to cut into the money that they need to take care of their family, then bankruptcy can be a very good solution for them. Um, I say the 5-year period because the maximum time that you can be in a bankruptcy is 5 years. And so if you have the ability to pay everything off in that 5-year period, then go for it. But if you're struggling to keep up with your bills right now, and you're having to do what I call robbing the Peter to pay the Paul, or the snowball effect, that you're using your credit cards to live on because your money that you're bringing in is going to pay your credit card bills, then bankruptcy can be really a good solution to help people get out of that situation and allow them to start rebuilding their credit for the future. And we've actually seen studies that have shown that people actually can increase their overall net worth by filing a bankruptcy, because now they're not struggling to put this money out for credit card debt and interest payments, and now they can start putting money aside for their future.
That's a really good point. I know that the B word can sometimes be a B word, right? I mean, and it may seem shameful for some families to have to go down this road. I know that not everybody's advertising, oh yeah, I filed for bankruptcy. And that's something that people, you bring up a really good point. You got to overcome that because it can really help you in the future. I mean, increasing your net worth in the future. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, and that's something I frequently hear is people say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to be so ashamed that I had to file bankruptcy." But that really should be the least of their concerns. First of all, there's nothing shameful about filing bankruptcy. It's there as a safety net. We recognize that this is sometimes necessary for people to be able to start fresh, to have that reset button. And I always tell people, if you're really concerned about it, go back and read our Constitution, Bankruptcy is one of the very few things that is provided for in our Constitution. That's how old it is. But it's even older than that. It's based on biblical principles. If you go back and read the Old Testament, the Jewish people were commanded to give a forgiveness of debt every 7 years. And so it's actually a biblical principle to have a period of time where debts can be forgiven and people can start fresh.
Hey, amen to that. I did not know
I didn't either. That's
those two
fascinating.
facts. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
So let me ask you this, Edrie. During this whole shutdown with COVID-19, I know the courts have been closed, state courts, the federal courts, immigration courts. How does this affect, if at all, the bankruptcy filings?
Well, actually, we're not shut down. Our courts are not shut down. Bankruptcy filings for attorneys has been electronically filed for almost 2 decades. Well, in fact, it is 2 decades now that we've been filing electronically. And so we don't need the physical building to be open to be able to file a bankruptcy petition. We file electronically. I can file 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's not been a problem. Now, there have been some adjustments made with mandatory hearings that are required as part of a bankruptcy. And right now we're doing all those hearings telephonically. And so people never have to leave the comfort of their home. They just have a phone number that they have to call in to do their hearing. Our court has accommodated things with, whenever possible, doing consent orders on things that need to be resolved. If not, they've been putting it off. They've even come up with a provision to do telephonic hearings for things that actually require a court appearance. But for the most part, we've accommodated it so that things can just keep moving forward very smoothly without any real problems.
So if somebody is considering a bankruptcy, the message is there's no reason to delay because of COVID-19. You can go right ahead and meet
That's
with you and file now, right?
That's correct. If somebody's struggling right now and having problems with it, they definitely can file. One of the other things that we see that is a common motivator for people filing bankruptcy is if they are being garnished, either their bank account's been frozen or their wages are being garnished. That had been put off for a little while because the state courts had closed, but now the state courts have all reopened and they are starting to initiate the garnishments again. And so this could be a good time while people have the ability to really focus on concentrating on developing their bankruptcy paperwork and getting everything together. It's really a good time to move forward. They also need to consider that if they put it off, it may be more difficult to find bankruptcy attorneys, or it may be more expensive because, unfortunately, supply and demand, if we get hit with a tidal wave of people that need to file bankruptcy, there's only a limited number of cases that we can take on, and we may have to charge more for those that we're doing because of the different things. So this could be a good time to get on board before the big rush hits and becomes more difficult to find an attorney.
that's the message that we're sending to our immigration clients as well. Just before the big wave hits of people filing for things, because a lot of people are mentally paused right now with regard to, okay, well, immigration looks like it's closed and the Trump executive order. So I'm just going to not do anything because they're not accepting anything, which is completely incorrect information. Just like with the bankruptcy, immigration work can move forward and go on. And in fact, we're advising and saying to our clients and potential clients, hey, you guys really should get on the front end of this rather than, get stuck in the back of the line, basically.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big point. Oh, by the way, speaking of immigration, one of the commonly asked questions is, can you file bankruptcy if you're an immigrant here, if you're not a U.S. citizen? And there is absolutely no prohibition on that. Now, the only thing that could be an issue, which is an issue anyway, is that if you have somebody who's undocumented and they're working under the table or with a social security number that maybe hasn't been obtained the right way, because we do have to show their social security number or their INS number to be able to file the bankruptcy for it. But if they don't have one of those, if they're here on a tourist visa or if they're here on a work visa, of course, they have the number for it. But there's no prohibition. I've done bankruptcies for immigrants, people who were not U.S. citizens, and we've never had any problems. The bankruptcy court doesn't report to other federal agencies with the exception of the IRS. And that's usually where the bankruptcy court does communicate with the IRS.
Okay, that's great information to know.
Right.
What if a person has an individual tax ID number, an ITIN? Is that
That's
good?
fine. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wow.
absolutely no problem.
Okay, so just to circle back for a moment, to be clear, because this is a question we get a lot from our clients. Um, if somebody potentially has some immigration issues swirling around that they're concerned about, and they're thinking to themselves, well, I really want to consider filing for bankruptcy, but my number one concern is that if I do some filing in federal court for bankruptcy, that the bankruptcy court is going to contact immigration and say, hey, we've got somebody over here who we think may have an immigration problem. And you're saying that that's very unlikely.
No, the bankruptcy court wouldn't have any way of knowing of somebody what their legal status is as far as immigration is concerned. Um, the one issue is the tax issue. If they have been filing taxes under a social security number that has not been legitimately obtained, then that could create a problem because the IRS is well aware of people who have filed bankruptcies. And so that could come up as an issue. But quite frankly, that could come up just because they're filing taxes that are under a social security number that's not legitimate for it. But as far as anything to do with deportation proceedings or anything like that, that would not come up at all during the bankruptcy case.
Okay, I do want to point out really quickly there is the new public charge rule, the I-944 form. And previously, before this form, which went into effect February 24th, and basically it's for green card holders, well, I'm sorry, people who are applying for lawful permanent residency and applying for the green card, they have to complete the I-944 to make sure that you're not going to become a public charge. And previously, people say, "Oh, I applied for bankruptcy. Is that going to be a problem for when I apply for my green card?" And my answer prior to February 24th, 2020 was, no, it shouldn't be a problem. It's not a problem at all. Okay, it wasn't even asked. It's not a question. It is now a question on the form I-944, just for those who are out there listening. And it's on page 7. There's 7 of 18 pages of this brand new government form. You know about these government forms, right, Edrie?
Oh, yeah.
Not this particular one, but on question 14, it says, have you ever filed for bankruptcy? Either in the United States or in a foreign country. And it has 3 places for you to put down a place of filing, type of bankruptcy, and it has chapter 7, 11, and 13, and the outcome as well. So what that means for people who are applying for the green card is that bankruptcy, if you have filed for it, it is one of the things that the immigration officer is going to look at, and they're going to look at it and use a totality of the circumstances test of your whole financial life. It's one thing. So I would say that if everything is great financially for you up until this point, and we have this global pandemic, and you're feeling like you need to do it, and it's one negative blip in your whole financial history, I think that you're going to be okay. Now, these forms, the I-944, they haven't really been adjudicated because they just started accepting these. So could I be wrong? I could be wrong. But I think that if it is a totality of the circumstances test, that it's going to be okay. So if you guys have questions about that, let us know. But I'm glad to hear that people who have an ITIN, who are not U.S. citizens, who may be here even on a professional visa, work visa, they are still able to be helped in this regard.
Right. I always tell people that are concerned about it. I have, of course, a lot of military that are concerned about their security clearances, or government employees. They're concerned about the security clearances. And I always tell them, well, who's the greater security risk? Somebody who has got overwhelming debt, or somebody who's filed bankruptcy and cleared their debt? And I would think that it would be somewhat the same with the immigration, is who is a greater risk of being on public assistance? Somebody who has overwhelming debt, or somebody who has cleared their debt through a bankruptcy, a legal process?
That is a great point. And when I have my first case, I'm going to just subpoena you to that interview, and then you can testify in front of the immigration officer. And that's a really good point, and I'm going to make that argument if I ever have to.
Right.
If this
Yeah.
actually becomes an issue, but that's a wonderful
So
point.
one of the recurring questions that I get from clients, and you can answer this hopefully, is does it matter in a bankruptcy what caused you to get into such debt? People say to me, well, John, you don't understand. I wasn't laid off or anything. I just was spending way too much money and got myself in trouble. I still have my job, everything. I just got myself in a hole and I can't get out now. Does it
Right.
matter what brought about the debt?
Not really. There's nowhere in the bankruptcy forms as to why you're in debt. It's just a matter of straightforward, who do you owe money to? Now, there are some things. When I first started practicing over 20 years ago, at that time, prior to that, there were attorneys who would tell people, "Oh, run out your credit cards to the max, and then file bankruptcy so you can get rid of it all." And now that we do have a 90-day look back to make sure that people haven't acquired debt for luxuries immediately before filing bankruptcy. But overall, there's nothing else about it that is going to become questionable about it. There may be some questions about it if, depending on their circumstances. For instance, if all of their debt was occurred very shortly before they filed bankruptcy, somebody might say, "Hey, what happened here?" But quite frankly, the vast majority of my clients are all coming to see me because something has happened. Usually it's some type of loss of income, either from medical problems or from a family separation. Divorce is a very common reason for it. They've lost their job or they've been cut back in hours. The vast majority of people have had something else that triggered the need to file a bankruptcy. But I do have clients who just realized, I'm never going to get out of debt at the rate I'm going because I'm just barely paying the interest on these credit card bills or this medical debt. And it's just not coming down, it's going up. And then so they can realize that, now's the time I need to do something to clear this up for the future. And another thing that people are starting to realize is that prospective employers also check credit reports. And so sometimes it can be necessary to get your credit report cleaned up through a bankruptcy to not affect your ability for future credit. Because if you have overwhelming debt, an employer or prospective employer may not be willing to hire you because they're going to be concerned, especially if you're going into a position where you may have access to the company funds. They may not want somebody who's got bad credit on their payroll.
Good point.
Yeah.
What does filing for bankruptcy do to your credit score and your credit report? What does it look like on there?
Initially, it will take a hit because it does show that you discharged debt in bankruptcy
Okay.
for it. However, if you look at it down the road, there's many things that you can do to clean up your credit. And you can get credit almost immediately after having filed bankruptcy. One of the things that I do for my clients, and I'm one of the very few attorneys in this area that does this, is I enroll them in a course that teaches them what the steps they need to take to rebuild their credit after a bankruptcy. The guy that runs the course says that you can get your credit score up into the good range within 12 months after filing a
Wow,
bankruptcy.
that's fantastic.
I think 24 months is more realistic, but you can definitely within a year to 2 years get your credit score back up into the really good range for it. And most mortgage companies want at least 2 years out of a bankruptcy before they consider somebody for a mortgage. And one of the most rewarding things I have is when I get a message from a former client that they're closing on their first house because they were able to rebuild their credit after the bankruptcy and get to the point where they could buy a house.
I bet
That is,
I bet that feels good.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and what a great service to your clients.
Yeah.
Oh,
Value
yeah.
added and really helpful.
Yeah, like I said, one of the things that we really say here is we not only want to get people to where they have that fresh start, but we want to help them start fresh after the bankruptcy. We want to do more for them, not just get them to the point where their debts are gone, but really show them what they need to do to move forward successfully after the bankruptcy.
That is wonderful.
And that's good to know that after you come out of a bankruptcy that you can borrow money again and get a mortgage. And
Absolutely. Yeah, people think, oh, it's going to destroy my credit forever. And that's absolutely not true. That is one of the things that is a really common misperception about bankruptcy. In fact, in most cases, it will eventually help them rebuild their credit because they don't have all this bad, ancient credit stuff hanging over their heads.
Awesome. Well, this is really great
Did you
information.
pay that old medical bill for me? So, Edrie, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, the easiest way is just to give us a call, or you can go to the website. We also have a little contact form that you can fill out on our website, hamptonroadslegal.com, or you can give us a phone call. The phone number to call is 757-276-6555, and that'll put you in touch with one of my assistants, and they'll be happy to set you up with a time to talk to me about your bankruptcy or your situation. Now, right now, we are doing everything through either the telephone or through meetings like this, a Zoom meeting, where we can actually see somebody and talk to them. I kind of prefer that because I like to show them things as we go through the process of what we can do to help them with their debt for it. But we don't have to have anybody come into the office. I know I have some people that are very scared about that. We're trying very hard, both for the protection of my staff as well as our clients, to limit the interactions with people. But we are definitely finding no problems with working with people over the telephone or through Zoom.
Yes, it has been it has been nice to be able to do that, protect the clients, protect our team, and the attorneys as well. That's
Right.
that's awesome. And did we get the phone number?
Yes, 757-276-6555.
Okay, awesome. And really quickly, and what is is there a fee to come see you and come talk to you? Do you charge a consultation fee?
Well, normally we do charge a $150 consultation
Okay.
fee, but I will waive that for somebody when they schedule their first consultation if they keep that appointment. Now, if I have somebody who's calling and blocking out my time and then not showing up and wants to reschedule at the last minute or calls back after their appointment to reschedule, I may have to charge the consultation fee simply because my time is limited. I can only see so many people, and I need to make sure that I'm dealing with people who are very serious about dealing with their debts.
Yes.
All
Well,
right.
that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Thank you so much. This has been
Yeah.
informative to
Thank you
us.
for joining us, Edrie.
I
This
love
has been
the
great.
biblical reference to bankruptcy. I think that, especially with our community, may make them feel a little bit less shameful if they have to go down this road.
That's
And
right.
there's nothing wrong with starting over and getting a fresh start, as you said.
That's right. And it's so necessary sometimes that, life happens, and sometimes it's just necessary to hit that reset button and be able to start over and rebuild your life from there. Right. But it's been great talking to you guys, and I really look forward to the day that we can actually meet again in person.
Yeah. That'd be
Absolutely.
great.
Well, listen, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time.
Okay, sounds
You gotta
great.
do 2 thumbs up with us, though. All right. Thank
All right,
you.
see ya.
Okay,
Take care.
bye.